According to research conducted by the Food Allergy Research and Education nonprofit, up to 15 million Americans live with food allergies, including 5.9 million children under the age of 18. That's 1 in 13 kids, and one of those kids is my good friend, Tasha Lee. Tasha is a smart, funny, amazing friend and human being. She also happens to have severe food allergies. Tasha is allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish, corn, sesame seeds, and flower seeds. And because of her food allergies, Tasha's everyday life is quite a bit different from mine.
So this is what I call my red bag, and I bring it with me everywhere I go. It's super important that I always know where it is because it has really important things in there, like my EpiPens. These can actually be the matter between life or death sometimes. It's what would save me if I was ever having an allergic reaction or anything like that. So I actually carry two, just in case one gets lost or just in case one is expired or anything like that. If one didn't work, I always have a backup because they're really, really important to have with me. I also have some antibacterial hand wipes in here that are just for before I eat, actually. I always want to make sure my hands are clean and sterilized before I eat any food with my hands because from touching doors all day and just being around other people, shaking hands, food residue actually gets left on your hands a lot, and I want to make sure no peanut protein or any like nut dust is left on my hands before I eat. So I have these in there just as a backup in case I don't have any in my purse to use before I eat anything. So the last thing I have in my red bag is this pamphlet here, and it actually tells what I'm allergic to, what food allergies are, what they're caused by, what the symptoms are, and how to use an EpiPen. And this is super helpful in case I'm somewhere where I don't know a lot of people or I'm somewhere where I don't usually go and I have a reaction. It tells people what I'm allergic to and how to use the EpiPen, so that could definitely come in handy if I'm having a reaction and I'm not capable of giving myself the EpiPen and somebody doesn't know how to do it. They can just learn real fast.
EpiPens are pen-shaped devices containing a drug called epinephrine that can prevent people with severe allergies from going into anaphylaxis, an extreme reaction that causes swelling in the airways and can lead to unconsciousness and even death. Symptoms include rash, throat or tongue swelling, shortness of breath, vomiting, lightheadedness, and low blood pressure. These symptoms can develop within minutes or hours of coming into contact with food or food residue that someone is allergic to. So, you can imagine that eating in restaurants can be very tricky for someone with food allergies.
I always have to take a couple of extra steps before I eat there, just to make sure I'm safe with the food I have. When the waiter comes, I always notify them of my allergy and I ask about the foods they have in their kitchen, if they have any nut products, anything that's processed with anything I'm allergic to, anything that could be cross-contaminated, or especially what kind of oils they fry in. It's important that I know this so I don't accidentally eat something that I shouldn't and have a reaction. After this, I make sure they know to tell the chef about my food allergy so the chef doesn't cross-contaminate any foods I'm allergic to with the food that they're making for me. I always have to make sure that the entire staff seems sure of themselves and what they're telling me. Sometimes I get people who seem to be guessing that their restaurant is safe. They say things like, "Oh, I think we don't have any of those foods in our kitchen," or "You'll probably be okay eating this." And that really doesn't make me feel sure that I'm going to be safe in their restaurant. So at that point, I know it's not okay for me to eat there. Many restaurant employees are actually really good about the allergies. They come back and report to me what the chef said about the food, and at that point I know I'm in good hands to eat at their restaurant. I do have a set of about 10 or so restaurants that I eat at pretty exclusively just because I know they're safe for me to eat there and I've been there plenty of times before. Even though I do eat at these places pretty frequently, I have to check nearly every time that none of their menu items have changed or that they haven't gotten anything new, or that they haven't changed the oils they fry in. For example, one of our local sandwich shops recently got a new item on their menu that included tree nuts. This was pretty unfortunate because it was one of my favorite restaurants and I couldn't eat there anymore, but I'm glad I found out about the item before I actually ate there and had an allergic reaction. So that just shows why it's so important to keep checking the restaurants that you go to, because you never know when something like that could happen.
There. So can I get a burger with just meat, cheese, bun, and lettuce? And then also, do you know what oil the fries are fried in?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, if it's okay, could you ask the chef? All right, thank you. And then also, do the buns have any seeds on them, or? Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. So, yeah, I'll just get a plain burger with fries, and then I guess we'll find out about the fries.
Restaurants are one thing, but Tasha has to be careful everywhere she
All right,
goes.
thank you so much.
Nowadays, one of the main places I have to keep an eye out for any allergens is the movie theater. I go almost every week with my friends, and I do the same things each time to keep myself safe. I always bring my own snacks just to make sure that I'm eating something I know I can have and I won't have a reaction. I also do what I like to do at school. I bring a big pack of wipes with me and I wipe down both armrests and the headrest just to make sure I'm not exposed to any allergens that were left by previous moviegoers or anything like that. I always like to make sure all my friends know exactly where my red bag is and how to use an EpiPen, so in case an emergency did happen, they would know how to act right away.
Any place that offers food or allows food can be dangerous for people with food allergies. Remember when airlines used to pass out complimentary bags of peanuts on planes?
One of the scariest places to be with food allergy is an airplane, because you're basically in a big metal box somewhere thousands of feet above the ground with no access to medication. I do carry my EpiPens with me on airplanes, but that doesn't mean that it's not a risk because I'm still so far away from any hospitals where I could get treated properly. Before I board any planes, I always take a ton of steps to make sure I'm going to be safe on my flight. First, I talk to the stewardesses and pilots and ask them to please make an announcement to the rest of the passengers that one of their fellow passengers has a nut allergy and to not open any snacks or have any foods with nuts in it on the plane. Usually the flights I go on, we have them prohibit the sale of any peanuts and instead offer pretzels or carrots or something that would be okay for me to be around instead. My family also bought some seat covers online that we bring on airplanes, and basically it drapes over the entire seat, so when I sit down I don't have to come in contact with any foods that previous passengers have left behind. And just like anywhere else, I bring my big package of wipes and we wipe down the seat handles, the drop down tray, the TVs that come on the back of the seats, and everything else to make sure it's free of any nut particles.
In 2014, a 4-year-old girl suffered a life-threatening allergy attack at an altitude of 30,000 feet. She stopped breathing and passed out on a flight after a passenger opened a packet of mixed nuts despite 3 warnings from staff that there was a child on board with a severe allergy. She was revived with epinephrine and treated when the plane landed. That passenger that opened the bag of nuts was banned from the airline for 2 years. Flying on planes is tough, but occasional. What about going to school every day?
With allergies, I have to take so many precautions almost every single day of my life, no matter where I am. School's definitely pretty tricky. I always have to tell my teachers about my allergy at the beginning of every school year. I also enact what's called a 504 plan, which basically sets up all the steps that I have to take day to day to prevent any allergic reactions. Mine details that I have a container of wipes in every single classroom, and at the beginning of each class period, I wipe down my desk to make sure there's no food residue from any previous students that were sitting in that seat. Last year I did have a run-in with one of my teachers when they had a science lab that used M&Ms, both of the regular and peanut variety. I had to go to the library and do an alternate assignment, and that really raised my own awareness of how good at communication I have to be with my teachers and let them know how crucial my allergy actually is. Something good that I did when I was a kid and I was in school is I ate at what was called the no nut spot at my table. There was a placemat that was taped down at the lunch table so I could eat in a specific spot next to all my friends that nobody else could eat at. That made sure no foods I was allergic to got in that area, that it didn't somehow end up in my lunch, and I didn't have a reaction at school. This was really important to me because beforehand there had been a no nut table where I sat all by myself because I was the only kid with nut allergies, and that's what they thought was the safest for me, but it definitely improved when they added the no nut spot at the table so I could sit with the rest of my friends.
In addition to kids with food allergies having to be extra cautious at school, there are also cases of food allergy bullying. In 2017, a 13-year-old boy died after suffering anaphylaxis at school after another boy purposely put cheese in the allergic boy's mouth. While it's a much more controlled environment, even family gatherings can be dangerous. During a Thanksgiving trip in 2016, 11-year-old Oakley ate some cake that contained nuts or nut extract and suffered a fatal anaphylactic reaction. Everyday life takes on a different experience for the millions of children and adults living with food allergies, and things aren't getting any better. Food allergies are on the rise, and researchers aren't sure why. But what we do know is that awareness and education are critical in keeping people with food allergies safe. Being aware and helping someone in distress can make a world of difference. You might even save a life. Maybe even Tasha's. For more information on food allergies, please visit Food Allergy Research and Education at FAIR.org.